Venom 3, The Last Dance.
I don't know. I'm just going to pause that for the thumbnail. The Last Dance, Venom 3. The final finale of this trilogy of the Venom films. Now, my thoughts on the first two Venom films are as such. I don't particularly think they're the greatest films in the world, but I have a lot of fun with them. I'm in the camp of people who really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed the second one. I don't think it's quite as good. I think there's parts that are better of it than it. There's parts of it that are better than the first one, but the first one I think just has a better structure overall. Like the effects work is better in the second than the first because I've just got a little bit more of a budget to work with. But no, I like both of them. And so the reviews came out, the first reactions came out saying it's the best of the three. Then the reviews came out, and actually, where is the Rotten Tomatoes score right now? It was better than the first one, but worse than the second one. Because the first one has the second one has like a 50-some odd percent, whereas the first one has like a 33%. So let me see where Venom went. Because at 46 reviews, it was like a 37%. Let's see right now where it currently stands. Come on. I hate how long it takes freaking Rotten Tomatoes to get it off its ass. All right, where? Okay, new to rent by. Okay, it's gone up since then, about 38%, with 77% of the audience, verified audience, liking it. Which, you know what? That sounds about right. The audiences generally like these films way more than the critics have. So, is it a piece of trash? Is it really the best of the series? What do I think? It is a very entertaining and fun mess of a movie. This is actually probably my least favorite of the three films, but it does have some moments that I think stand out as some of the best stuff in the Venom franchise, which is weird to say. Yeah, this is what I mean when I say it's a mess of a film. Now, I'm going to do what I sometimes do and break down positives, negatives, all that. And I'm actually going to start with the negatives first, because I do want to try to talk about the positives beyond that. But just my general take, I do think the film is entertaining. I did enjoy myself. But I don't think it's that good. I don't think it's god-awful. It's going to be on neither my best of the year or my worst of the year list. But I actually decided to write down the things I thought worked here. So let me see here. All right, there. So I think what stands out to me most of all in terms of it's a combination of everything. 1 and 2 kind of go together. It's the script and the structure of the film. Whereas in the original, you can't say the dialogue or the writing was perfect, but it was, it did its job. And while this does do the job, it's so very exposition heavy. Like the very opening of the film has no explaining who he is, what he wants, all that. And we'll talk about no and a kind of midpoint in this section. In fact, that's going to be the transition to the good stuff. No. But you get the two characters played by Juno Temple and Chiwetel Ejiofor, two fantastic performers who are given kind of the most cookie cutter characters you have. You get the scientist with a tragic background trying to do this work, but trying to save people, understand these creatures, but she's kooky and out of touch. There's a scene where after the scene you see in the trailer where Venom and Eddie are in the water and they're attacked by the xenophage, which is the alien that's hunting them. There's a scene afterward. There's an immediate scene where Chiwetel basically says, "I just lost 3 men." It's like, did you get any samples? And you can see the person she's working with go like, people just died. Like, are you that disconnected? What? But the problem is that they don't do anything with it. Like, they don't give her some sort of apology to him for saying something so blatantly crass, or disconnected, or just out of touch. He's the standard, oh no, these aliens are invaders, we need to kill them, da, 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 da. And then he's got a very minor arc near the end. It's really a waste of performers, and the script is kind of like that. A lot of it is just exposition heavy. It's characters telling you things. Toxin, we know, was revealed to be in the movie. Peter Mulligan's character, I can't remember what the actor's name was. He's again, and first off, does not have the same origin at all as the original Toxin. I'm not someone who would normally have an issue with that. But they at least made Toxin kind of look fine. But Toxin is a cool character that they've kind of just gone with. Like, they're done with Toxin. Like, well, that was dumb. But like, he's just there for exposition. Venom is kind of just expository. Null's even there mostly for exposition. Like, it's just exposition dumps here or there. Ifris Fawn, Doc Connors from the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. He's there for just some exposition stuff. It's a lot of people just exposition dumping. And look, that can work in the right context if you have other things to balance it out. And definitely, like, the stuff between Eddie and Venom helps balance it out with some banter and humor and these some touching moments. We'll talk more about that later in the good stuff. But it makes it choppy, clunky, and that doesn't help because the structure of this film is very off. I will say the first act is pretty solid, which I would count the first act as when we start the film to when after Eddie and Venom get out to have their trip down the waterfall. That would be the first act. The third act, which is basically the climax, they're in Area 55 after Area 51. The Area 51 is being decommissioned. I'd say that's also honestly solid, good, like entertaining. But then you get this middle chunk with the other problem I have in here. We spend way too much goddamn time with this family. Like, look, I get it. Only people who would really remember the Spider-Man movies, the Andrew Garfield ones, would recognize him, or like No Way Home, would recognize him as the guy who played Doc Connors. So got a lot of us fans speculating that maybe this is an alternate Doc Connors. Maybe this is Doc Connors after he was cured and maybe he found a life. Maybe it takes place in the Andrew Garfield universe or like in something else. But no, he's just a hippie dude with his family going to Area 51 because he wants to stay in alien because he's a conspiracy nut. And we spend about 20 minutes with this family. Yeah, and then they need to come back for the climax because they need someone for Brock and Venom to save, which admittedly does lead to a nice moment with like Venom and like little kid. It's like, this is my friend. It's like, hello, thank you for the chocolate. So I mean, it does lead to something nice like that, but otherwise, and like one funny moment, admittedly, I'll give them credit. Like, it led to like one or two laughs from them, but otherwise, I'm like, we are spending way too much time. This film has just come to a grounding halt. And I'm going to be honest, the Vegas stuff wasn't as entertaining as it should have been, in my opinion. You still get that jokey in the trailer where it's like, oh, what is this feeling? It's like all of my problems just are going away. Eddie, I need more money. No, it's all gone. No, I think you broke my foot, buddy. But then you have Mrs. Cheng there. You see, Mrs. Cheng, Eddie Brock. And it leads to a dance number, which only exists to get the plot moving forward again. Like so the brief plot synopsis here is that Null, the Dark Lord of the Abyss, the god who created the symbiotes, is locked in the symbiote homeworld, Clintar, which is their word for cage. And the plot MacGuffin here is that there's something about Eddie and Venom that is special that he needs to get from him. Well, he sends the xenophages, the aliens you see them hunting in the trailers, after him, which can track them, but only when he's transformed fully into Venom. When he's just doing the partial like tentacles or the head sticking out, they can't track him. So that entire dance sequence, even though Venom himself is told I cannot be in my full form, otherwise they will track us down. He's only there to get the damn thing there and to move the plot along. It is completely pointless. Now, it is entertaining for what it's worth, but it's completely pointless to be there. It's there only to move the plot and get things moving again, because otherwise Eddie and Venom would probably disappear into the wind, more or less. And that leads me to another problem. Because of that plot point, we actually don't see a huge amount of Venom compared to the other films. In the original film, he shows up briefly when he first shows up, he breaks the guy's head off. That scene with the SWAT, he gets scene with the SWAT, the mask going up the building.
It's peaceful up here.
Sheena and then him fighting Riot. So there's actually a solid chunk of Venom himself in that film. Then in Let There Be Carnage, there's arguably more Venom in there because you get him several times going out on his own, fighting Carnage. So you get arguably a decent amount. If I were to add up all the amount of time Venom himself legitimately has on screen in this movie, you get that scene in the beginning, which is the beginning where he kills the I don't know if they're drug dealers, they were gang members. He kills the gang members, eats them. We are Venom! So he does that. I can do a pretty good Venom impression, at least from that version. And that's maybe 2 minutes at best. It's still decent, but 2 minutes maybe. Then the scene on the plane, which is again maybe 40 seconds. Then the SWAT team attacking him, which is again maybe 40 seconds. Then the dancing queen and in Cheng's apartment, like in her penthouse, which is again a minute at most. And then the final act where he's sporadically showing up, which he's maybe there for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes at most. So Venom as Venom is really not in this film a lot. He's really not. And that, I think, hurts it a little bit. Now, this leads me back in. I mentioned Null. Let's actually talk about Null, because this now leads me into the positives. Null falls into kind of a middle ground. See, this star is supposed to be our introduction to Null, and if this film obviously does well enough, we're leading up to something big with Null. Null is in the film, maybe, spoilers, he's involved in a post-credit scene. But even if you include the post-credit scene, maybe 5 total minutes. He's got some lines that, like I say, he gives you a bit of his background in the beginning. We see him sporadically in the movie. There's even a flashback to what happens if he got released from his prison. And look, Andy Serkis is playing him. Here's the thing, though. It's clearly a physical actor in a lot of those moments, but the design, when we do actually see his face, which isn't until the very post-credit scene shot, it's not Andy Serkis. It's clearly more of a CGI character. And I'm like, oh, well, I would have thought someone would have been physically playing him, because he's clearly physically there at points, but whatever. To be honest, I thought it was Clancy Brown at points narrating. It doesn't sound like Andy Serkis. But so we don't see a lot, but he's got this great aura about him. He's got this great presence about him. And if the movie was better, if the movie was structurally better, had a more tight script to it, I feel like this would have been a better introduction leading up to him. But I feel like in order to at least give us something to look forward to with him, you needed to do what they should have done with Gore the God Butcher and actually show us him butchering some gods. At least a scene of it. I think you need a scene of, you know what? You need the dark side scene in Justice League, in Zack Snyder's Justice League. You need a scene of him in the past doing something horrific to show us just how dangerous this guy is. And maybe that was in the original cut, but maybe not. Either way, I think it wasn't a bad introduction. I just think it unfortunately is marred by a subpar movie. But this leads us into the positives now, because I do think overall what we need from Null, the very beginning of it, is there. And I think it can be hit, and we'll talk a little bit more about near the end what maybe the future could hold for that. But the positives, though, still are, I think, still outweighed it enough for me to enjoy it. And what did I write down for the positive, just to be sure here? Yeah, no. So like I said, the first and third act, I think, are actually really solid. I think the dialogue is actually at its best in those two acts. It's the middle of the film that just suffers a lot. But I do think, the dialogue, particularly the banter between Eddie and Venom, that is, if that's something that you've enjoyed throughout all the films, you are still going to enjoy it here. In fact, I'd say it's arguably at its peak here, because these guys have been doing it now for a while, these two characters. So they're definitely, they definitely have gotten to know each other pretty well, and they are friends. They are good friends, and they actually have some really touching moments with each other. There's a scene involving him and the son of the family they're driving with, and it does lead to a very nice moment with Venom and Eddie just talking about what kind of life they could have had. And then, without giving too much away, the very end of the movie is actually, it hits some emotional beats. It does. I wasn't getting teary or anything. I'm like, no, I'm feeling this. This is working. Like, you can feel the finality of what's going to happen here. I'm not going to obviously say how it ends. I will say it ends in a way where I'm like, there could have been something else on there, but okay. So I do. Eddie and Venom still work great. The effects work, honestly, still great. It still looks good, particularly when Venom isn't as Venom. Surprising, I think it looks still fine, though it looks a little bit more CGI now. Which is surprising because this is the most expensive one at $120 million. They had an extra 10 this time around. Probably going just to Tom Hardy for coming back. But like when Venom is partially out of Eddie, he's got that little head tendril. He looks the best when he's like that, surprisingly. Though when Venom pops in other animals like a Venom frog or Venom fish, I still think it still looks pretty good. And there's a nice little scene where we see animals Venom could have possessed. Although there's an implication about that I won't spoil, but there's implications of why that's there. But regardless, different animals venomized, which is pretty fun. The action is also actually really good. It's a lot of fun, particularly when we get to the end. When we get to the end, it's balls out craziness, and it's a lot of fun if you can stick through the end. Like I said, though, the beginning act, though, is still solid. When we do get action sequences, it's pretty solid. And the xenophages, the aliens that are attacking Venom, look really good. Their CGI is pretty awesome. They are hard to kill. They blender their victims, which is pretty fun. Which I think now leads us into the last bit of discussion, where the series can go from here. Because as I said, they have plans for Null. Well, that leads us with two options here. First off, can the Venom series go on beyond this point? The answer absolutely is yes. Can it go on without Tom Hardy? Absolutely yes. But Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock? Yes. But without too much spoilers, and I almost missed it in the movie, something happens to a character, a no-name character, mind you, who we don't actually see the face of. Well, not a no-name character, but they drop a name, and I'm like, wait, is that who that is? Oh, you clever, as bad as dismantled, disheveled, that's a great word. As disheveled as this movie is, there are bits and pieces here that I'm like, you did set up stuff. You didn't do it amazingly well, but you did set up stuff. Okay. So that's how we can continue this. But beyond that, there's two clear routes here. They say that Null exists outside of the universe, and that means he exists in the black void around the universe, all that. Well, maybe there are other universes. So there's two things. One, if Venom 3 can be a financial success, and it's solid financial success at that, like the other two were, then we can keep the Sonyverse going. We can justify keeping the Sonyverse going to give Null better showings down the road. Because right now he barely got a showing. But this might be a setup, but you still need some sort of showing to know what we're getting later down the road. We'll have to see how Kraven does. The one thing, though, let me rephrase that. Let me backtrack, I should say. We'll have to see how Kraven does. But the other option, as some people have been thinking, is that Null's actually going to cross into the MCU. Now, I would prefer this more because, frankly, you have nothing set up to deal with Null right now. Madam Web was a bust. There's no way you're getting Jared Leto back from Morbius. Though, to be honest, I have softened on Morbius. It's a bad movie, don't get me wrong. But the more I've compared it to Madam Web, the more I'm like, no, this is actually far more entertaining than that was. I've kind of softened on Morbius quite a bit. And I think some of it's not bad. There are highlights in that film. But the only thing you really had going for you were the two other Venom films. Now you got this Venom film, and now you got Kraven coming. If your Sonyverse is the one that's going to be dealing with Null, you need to be setting up a lot more characters. And you just don't have it in the cards. But we know Sony and Marvel have had deals before. I mean, that's why Marvel's allowed to use Spider-Man. This is why certain characters have been able to cross over. Now, granted, in this new Sonyverse, you haven't normally had characters established in the Sonyverse cross over into the MCU. However, you have actually had the opposite happen. You've had the MCU Vulture go into the Sonyverse for whatever reason, which didn't make any logical goddamn sense, by the way. But the point is, you do have precedent for a character crossing over. And Nolan's kind of that perfect character because of how he exists, where he's someone that if you want to use in one universe, you could, but you could still use him in the other and vice versa. Or if you just want it from one, you could. And logically right now, actually, the MCU is the better lined up film for series for that. Now, granted, they do have, obviously, Secret Wars coming, Doomsday. Spider-Man 4 was just announced to be coming out in July 2026. Some people are thinking that's going to be Black Suit Spider-Man. Some people think Nolan's going to be fighting Spider-Man. I don't know about that, but we'll find out. We know there's a little bit of the Black Symbiote Goose still in that universe. What's my take right now? We have to first wait to see how well Venom does, which now leads me to what I was going to say to end this off. That the one thing that the Sony Marvel films have had over, say, even the MCU, legitimately, is that they've made these things on relatively low budgets. The original Venom was $100 million, made over $860 million. The second Venom film was $110 million. It made a lot less. In fact, Venom Let There Be Carnage. Let me double check what that was. It still made like I want to say 560 or 50 something. Let's see here. Venom. They call me Venom. Let's see where. There you go. Venom Let There Be Carnage. Oh no, 506. It's a little lower than I said, but still, it made $506 million against a $110 million budget, which still means that it crossed. Once it hit 300, it made its money back easy. It still was immensely profitable. And then you have the two ones that more or less bombed. You had Madam Web, which wasn't actually made on all that much. Madam Web was what was it made on? Hold on. Madam Web. What was that one made on? That one was made on $100 million budget. I really don't quite know where the $100 million was. Was it Dakota Johnson's budget? Paycheck? Was that it? Because he was the biggest name in there. That was, honestly, looking at that, probably was more Morbius dollars, which was like 70, which Morbius was the cheapest one to do. Morbius was, I want to say, like 75 million. Morbius, the Living Vampire. Where are you? Morbius budget was 75 million. It was the cheapest one to do. Its box office was actually 176. And if I remember correctly, the marketing budget was relatively low. Now this is because for Morbius, it was coming out really during the pandemic era. Unfortunately, it was likely increased. Oh, well, it was actually likely increased due to delays that led to marketing. So do we know how much it was? I had heard, mind you, that was like only 25 million. But that probably isn't right. I'm gonna guess more like 40 million, give or take, which isn't a lot but they had to bump it back a bit. So that means this film didn't break even, but it got close. And now you have Venom The Last Dance, which is roughly speaking around $120 million. Well, they did a decent marketing, but nothing serious. My guess is we're looking at about 80 million, which would make sense because that would round it up to a nice even 200 million. And so that means, roughly speaking, this film hits 300 million. This film will be just fine. Now, what is this film tracking at right now? Last I had heard it was 70 million. I think it's been adjusted to about 65, which I guess a $120 million budget, that'd be fantastic. It had like an $8 million preview on Thursday, which is why they're tracking about 65. We're tracking it a little higher, like 70. So we're looking between 60 and 70 million. Even if it comes in the low end of that, I'd say like 56 or something like that, that would still not be a bad opening for a $120 million film. That would not be a bad opening at all, actually. Now, if it opened it like down to like 40 or something, then we'd have a problem, because that doesn't just mean bad numbers. That means it drastically underperformed. But the thing this film does have going for it is the first two Venom films. The audience overall like these films far more than the critics do. So that means if they come back and they like it, they'll keep coming back again. Add on to the fact that we do not have any strong releases coming out in the last week of October, basically next week, which is the last week of October, first week of November. There like legitimately is no wide releases coming out next week. We got Lost in the Mountains in May, which is based on a book. Hit Pig, which is some weird animated film. Let's see here. Anything else? Like, yeah, there's nothing. So Venom Last Dance does at least. Oh, and here the Tom Cruise thing's getting at least a limited release, maybe a wide release, not sure. But there's nothing that's going to be challenging it next week. But what about, say, the following week? We have Overlord: The Sacred Kingdom, interesting. Elevation, which is a action sci-fi thriller with Marina Baccarin, Anthony Mackie. What the hell is this that I have not heard of? A single father and two invention and safety of their own to face monstrous creatures save the life of a young boy. This comes out in 2 weeks? I love monster movies. What the hell? But let's see. Beyond that, we have The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. Not going to be hurting Venom's money box office. And Heretic. I want to see Heretic. That looks really weird and fun and creepy, and I love Hugh Grant. But again, not anything that is going to be challenging this movie. Now, you got Red One technically coming out. I mean, it's got a limited release. Am I reading that right? Limited release that Sunday? The 12th of November? Am I reading that right? Hold on. No, okay, 12th is a Tuesday. No, 10th. Yeah, Sunday. That must be like a fan early screening. That must be what it is. And I'm just checking anything else here really quick. So we would be looking at the 15th. Here gets the Y. Yeah, okay, so yeah, here is just getting a limited release. Red One gets its Y release. Okay, yeah. So Venom, well, so one big thing that Venom has going for it is no competition. Like, legitimately nothing is hurting this thing in terms of its demographic. There's no like big action film coming out, no big sci-fi film, no big comic book film at all. The only other comic book film coming out this year is Craven. So it's got like at least 3 weeks to the box office, mostly I mean, it's going to have some minor releases, but nothing that's really going to be hurting it. Look, this thing might have some wonky legs. It might have some great legs. They're apparently banking on China for a lot of its income. Because if I look at the Venom movies one last time, how well did both of these do in China? Let's find out, shall we? Because that's really going to be, or at least overseas. Let's look at overseas then. Let's see. And I'm going over, not going over limit, but okay. So the original Venom domestically made $213 million, 642 worldwide, and its performance. Oh, there we go. China. 269 in China alone. So, and then we'll do Let There Be Carnage here. Let's see here. Let There Be Carnage. Let's see here. Did that get I don't know. I don't think this one got a Chinese release. It did not get a Chinese release. Oh, interesting. That actually explains quite a bit. But this one is getting a Chinese release, so we could be looking at closer to the originals numbers or somewhere in between it and Carnage. I don't think this will be making $1 billion, but look, if we've seen worse films, very worse films, make $1 billion, Transformers, anyone. So, Alice in Wonderland. Ugh. Like, personal opinion. But it's not likely. Neither of the original made $1 billion, but let's not forget the Venom franchise is $1 billion franchise. Think about that. First one made $860 odd million, and the previous one made 506. That's 1.3 billion, almost 1.4. So I think similar to like the Deadpool films, between the two of them were like 1.5 billion together. We kind of forget that the Venom franchise is $1 billion franchise as a whole. Just food for thought. Anyway, last but not least is the trailers. We got the Captain America trailer. Again, I was wrong. We didn't get a trailer. I think they might actually be saving that for either Mufasa or Moana. I think that's what they're going to be doing. And it would make sense because that way you could still attach it to Craven too. But they're Disney products. So we got that one again. We got Craven, although it's the PG-13. It's still a great, look, that movie might be shit, but it's a great trailer. It's like, there's a man going around taking names when the man comes around. Like, if you know how to use your Johnny Cash, you can make a damn good trailer. Look at the Logan trailer. One of the best trailers I've ever seen. I hurt myself today. But we also got a couple trailers that I got the Heretic trailer again. A couple trailers that I was not aware we were going to get, or I had not seen before. One of them is just a comedy with both Keke Palmer and SZA, who I guess going into acting. Yeah, I was not in them. There was a couple jokes from Cat Williams in the trailer that I actually did laugh at, but not really my. But the one that I'm like, oh, I need to take care of my girlfriend to this. But I think this will be a great date movie because it's coming out in February, perfect for Valentine's Day. Is Ki Kwan, who's been having a resurgence lately, called Love Hurts, where he's playing this realtor, but turns out he was an ex-assassin. He's like a badass, and he has to go join up with the girl he saved to like bring down his evil crime brother. It looks like a lot of fun. And then what was the other one I saw that I did not realize? Oh wow, I got that Mickey 17 again. How lucky is one and a cake. Then what else did we get? There was one other one that I did not recognize. Like it was a new trailer for a movie that I didn't know was coming out or something. Let's see, Red One. Didn't get Red One. We got Gladiator 2 again, but that wasn't it. What was it? Was it something coming out next year or this year? I am trying to see. I think it was something coming out next year, and I couldn't. I can't. I'm not going to try to look for it right now. Hold on. I can just click the tab. It's easier to get here than I thought. Okay, 20 movies from 2025. Let's see here. Come on. I know the site can be reached. You're lying to me. Stop it. Thank you. We did not get the Wolf. Oh, Den of Thieves 2, Pantera. You can tell why I kind of forgot that. Den of Thieves was basically a modern day version of Heat, except they made the cop chasing them a lot less likable with Gerard Butler, and I love Gerard Butler, but man, they made that guy like kind of an asshole. And now we got this new one where him and O'Shea are back. He's now fired from the force, and he wants to do the job. Look, I'll give it a watch. I like Gerard Butler, so I'll at least try. I'll give it a try. Until then, though, that's my thoughts. Venom: Last Dance. I enjoyed it, but it's a mess. We'll see how well it does in the long run. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.